we'll see if we can pull this off today. Been wanting to do this for a while, but I just haven't had put it together, in my head. This is about fasting and fasting in the mountains, and my history is that we didn't have. I didn't have the opportunity to have elders available because of my dad. We moved off, and then when we ended up in Billings, I was then sent to boarding school. So the history of my family was that my grandma was sent to boarding school at the age of 4, and my grandpa he was sent to boarding school when he was about 15. But they were thoroughly colonized. My grandfather's family was offered hang or convert at Mankato, and so my grandfather's family converted. So the history of fasting in the mountains was not something that we handed down. Well, most of our family became Christian, either hang or become Christian, and so they were Christianized. For me, fasting in the mountains, I think the 60s, there were some, mysteries and things that went on in the 60s that were brought out by Black Elk and Joseph Brown's book and Neihart's book on Black Elk about fasting. There was some event that could happen, and it was a real good time to think for young people like myself because of the 60s, of what was going on with the world. And historically, people fasted, and most of the historically spiritual quests have been, either instigated by a fast or in somewhere there's a fast involved. And fasting for, is different for different people. It could be fasting from, food, or fasting from food and water. And most of what I experienced was food and water, no food or water for a period of time. Now, I just want to share that fasting was an experience that I enjoyed because the alternative was I would either be, a drunk, an alcoholic, and, die young, or it wasn't good. It wasn't a good future. So the first time I actually saw or witnessed something of this nature was I was the fireman up in the Pryor Mountains in the 70s, and on the Dry Head Overlook there was a structure built on the ground, and the ranger in charge said that was a place somebody had fasted for 4 days, and I thought, and he knew the name of the individual, which was, I thought, interesting, but so it wasn't prehistoric, it was relatively new, maybe had been in the last 60 years. So I looked at that, but then I looked out at what this individual had been looking at, and I thought this would be spectacular for a few days. And so it was always in the back of my mind, and so I just got into sort of a jam with alcohol, and thought, the only way out is to take a different road, a different path. And so I went to a clan uncle, and I asked him if, what's the process going up fasting in the mountains. And so he said he'd never done it before. He'd never sent anybody before, but we'd get through it. And a sweat was involved, and there was other instruments. But for me, it wasn't until I was older that I was that an elder was available. And the elder really gave me pointers, but really never said, this is how it is. And so I appreciate that as I look back, because it gave me a chance to develop my own kind of outlook on the world. And so, fasting in the mountains for me was really good. I don't believe it is for everyone. I think, if you have medical problems or if you have, mental problems, I don't think it's advisable. It's fasting in the mountains looks really good on the paper, but it's tough. And people who do it, I have, my hat's off to them, because I would say you spend a great deal of time in preparation, and then you go, and the moments go by, and you cannot drink them in like you would want to. You just can't absorb them. And some of them are spectacular moments of, you and the environment, and you and rain, or you and ants, or you and the wind. And, the promise is that you'll stay there for a period of time. And that's the key, is that period of time is always questionable, because some people's bodies, they're just built differently, and they can endure more. I encourage people to think about spiritualism in relation to the environment, because once you're out in the environment and you're there for a period of time. I fasted in Montana. I fasted in most of the mountains around the crazies, the bighorns, the priors, the beartooths, the absarokas. Maybe not so up in the Wolf Mountains, or the Bull Mountains out of Roundup. But all these other ones, yes, and each experience was, wonderful. And I think it kept me going through my time with alcohol. And so if you are in a corner like I'm sitting here now, my corner, of course, was ancestry, and who are you, and my identity, and the challenge. You have to realize in some cases these things have to be done in a specific way, and I do not encourage people just to fast. That's a diet. I encourage people to go to an elder and ask them to be with you, or to shepherd you, or to put you out on the hill, because that is the custom, and how they do it is how they do it, and not for me to question. I don't know their way. But it's a risk, and people need to understand that it takes a special individual to be able to pray for somebody to be out on the hill, or to be fasting on the mountains. And so I don't encourage people stepping up and say, oh, I'll send you out, because the liability is that somebody can get hurt, and on their spiritual adventure, that may be what needed to happen. But in our world of law, you have to wake up to the fact that they then can sue you, or they can um, really do you harm publicly. So we've come to a different time than I had in the 70s. You could go to a grandfather or an uncle and you could ask them to send you out and they would do the ceremony and send you out. But it's not like that anymore. The mountains there are closed in. There are too many people, and too many people don't understand fasting in the mountains or why you would be there. Maybe you're there because you're in grief, or you're there because of a tragedy that's happened, or a healing that you promised to give days for. Whatever the case may be, this is a sacred, holy moment for that individual fasting, and it's not a moment for you to be, target practicing or doing fireworks or. And so we have the conflict of freedom here, and unfortunately, we are coming to a time when fasting in the mountains are going to be limited. So I suggest if you are a working person that you start, preparation. For me, when I went fasting in the mountains, the preparation was from September through the year until July, and fasting in the mountains in July. And here's my dog making her cameo appearance. Go on. Silly. Just on time. Anyway, fasting in the mountains, those days are really well gone, and but that doesn't mean that there's no connection left for you and nature, you and the environment, and you and your spiritual path. Because all of those things, your path is nature and your path is the environment. So instead of just going and partying in nature, you should go and, take some time and say some prayers. And if you don't know what you're saying, then you need to go to an elder and have them teach you some words. And the words from inside here are the best that you can use for, praying or fasting in nature. So, yeah, fasting in nature, fasting in the mountains, that was a good time. I was very young and very aggressive, and so I went many times. And maybe that wasn't so good, for the body. It was good because of my need for myself. What was the outcome? What did it do? Did it put me in any place, or what did it give me? And I never asked for anything. It gave me lots of things. It gave me sun dancing. It gave me, a perspective on the world and the universe and our place in the universe. And, that's, the best you can enjoy in your life is a spiritual understanding like that. So, bless you, keep you, take care of each other, and let's hope that, everything turns out as it should for you. And this is not the Hunger Games, this is just a pandemic. So that should identify what time frame we're talking about in this speech. All right, thanks now, bye.